Hi guys, okay, so in last week's video I introduced my Fauxbonichi, and I said that I'd been using watercolour to colour in my pages, and this caused a little bit of a stir amongst some of you that were more intrigued about how to use watercolours and using watercolour on the pages, how I do that, how the paper reacts and all that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be easier to do a video on it than like reply to everybody's comments. So here's said video. Okay, so I firstly wanted to start with, if you didn't see my video a week or so ago now, a couple of weeks ago, I'll link it below, on the secrets of being a mixed media artist. Then please go and watch that, because that's very relevant to this as well. So the watercolours that I use are by Winsor and Newton, and I actually have two sets because I've been using watercolours for years and years and years. I have the very large set, and I also have the smaller travel size, and I tried to find the smaller kit for this video, and I don't know where it's gone. It seems to have gone AWOL. I think it's in a bag somewhere where I've taken it out and about. But talking about portability, I also do take the large set out and about with me, because if I want to use a lot of watercolour or what have you, because I don't find this that big. There's a whole lot I want to say about watercolour and stuff. A lot of it pertains to that other video I mentioned. You don't need to have the large set because you can mix colours. You know, all you need: red, yellow, blue, black, white. And you can mix your own colours, so you don't need to have the large set. That being said, as I've been using watercolour for a long time, many years, so that's why I have the big set, because I use it a lot. And okay, so some of the comments were about quality of watercolour. Now, it's entirely up to you how much you spend on your watercolours. Now, you can use really cheap children's ones, or you could splash the cash and buy a more expensive brand. The Winsor & Newton is probably, this set retails probably about £40 to £50, I think. I mean, you could probably buy it on sale somewhere on the old interwebs. I can't remember because I've had it for a while, and I just buy the refillable pans when I need to, but it does last me quite a long time, the pans. Then there are other brands out there. I mean, just Winsor & Newton is just my preferred brand because I've used them for many years. And, you know, basically you can buy the cheap ones or you could splash the cash, entirely up to you. If you are new to watercolour and you're not sure, then I would always advise starting with a cheaper brand before, you know, and then you can decide whether you like it or not. That being said, so there's pros and cons with everything. That being said, if you start with the cheapest stuff, then you might be a little bit disappointed with the quality, so that might put you off watercolour. So basically, just use your own intuition and judgment, and, you know, whatever your balance will allow. And if you can get a Winsor & Newton kit on sale somewhere, then brilliant, go for that. So the cheaper watercolours tend to be chalkier, and I'm not going to go into like technical detail or anything about them, but they tend to be chalkier just because of the way they're made, so they'll have a bit of a chalkier finish. They may not be as highly pigmented. You may need a lot more water to get them going, to get them activated, and you may not be able to get quite the results that you want to, but you will be able to colour in your doodles and pages and stuff. So really great to get started. Go for a cheap set. as the benefits of having a more expensive set are the reverse of everything I've just said. So you need very little water to activate them. They're highly pigmented, so you need to use less paint. So it swings and roundabouts, really. I would say if you really think that this is something you want to do and go for, then I would say invest in the Winsor & Newton or a similar brand. But try and look online. There's various places online, Amazon. In the UK, I use Cowling and Wilcox. I believe in the States you've got Dick Blick. But have a look online, have a look on eBay. There are always people selling off second-hand ones. So just, you know, just do that. But just think about it. Think about whether it's something you really want to do. Christmas is coming up. Maybe put them on your Christmas list. That kind of thing. So that's kind of my little spiel about quality. The other comments were about the paper and how the paper holds up, because obviously you're using a wet medium. Now, this is another little bugbear of mine, in as much as a lot of people have been told or sold that you need to use certain things in the art and mixed media world. That being, you know, if you're using watercolour, you need to use watercolour paper. If you're using whatever, you must always gesso your pages. Now, that goes back to my other video as well, that learn your medium and learn how it works and how it reacts and how you use it with different papers. Now, I watercolour on any paper whatsoever. And what you want to do with watercolour sometimes does depend on your paper. If I'm doing like a really in-depth wet in wet technique, and how I created the galaxy haired girls, then I will use a watercolour paper, because I'm really loading the page up and I want a lot of wet in wet, which is where you wet the page and then you apply wet watercolour and it will wick and blend. That's what we call wet in wet. And you know, so I want a really heavy watercolour paper. But if I'm just colouring in doodles or something in my journal, then any paper will go. The only paper that I've ever had slight difficulty with is cartridge paper. But I still use cartridge paper for watercolours. And the key is to practice. I cannot stress this enough, is practice. Practice using your watercolours and practice on different papers. And as I said, different watercolours will need different amounts of water to activate them. So the Winsor & Newton brand that I use needs very little water, because they're so highly pigmented. You need very little water. You can get a real high concentrate of colour with such little water. And that's the other key to using watercolours on other sorts of paper, like copy paper, writing paper, whatever paper, is use less water. Because, I mean, I don't know much about it, so I'm not even going to embarrass myself, but because I'm not a paper guru, but it's something to do with the fibres and stuff. But anyway, some papers will crinkle if you use too much water, and that's what it all boils down to, is using too much water or being heavy-handed with the water. So if you're not using a watercolour paper, just be a little bit more less heavy-handed with your water. And you know, you may get a little bit of buckling on the paper, but generally it's fine. Use less water and buy a better quality watercolour set to be able to do that. But I'm all for going down the budget route and the faux route. If you know, if you haven't got the budget to do that, again, practice. Learn your watercolours, practice on different papers, and learn how to use the paints that you have got. Because I'm sure you will find a way that works for you. And again, don't use too much water, because you can rub away the fibres of the paper to poke holes through. But again, as I'll always say, practice, practice, practice. Learn your media, learn how it works. I know hands down how my Winsor & Newton watercolours work, because I've been using them for years. I could not pick up someone else's watercolours and necessarily rock and roll. I'd be able to use them because I roughly know how to use watercolours, but they would be slightly different. So I wouldn't necessarily be able to pick theirs up straight away and work with them. I would be like, oh, that's slightly different, and I'd have to adapt. So just practice, 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 practice. Use your watercolours, test it on different papers and stuff. The third thing was you wanted to see how I actually watercoloured in my pages. So I'm going to do that now. I will flip the camera round and I will just put it on speed paint. I'm recording this on Friday, the 7th of November. I'll pop it up on the day you're watching, most likely. And the page that I'm going to be colouring in is from yesterday, the 6th of November. I've seen all your comments. I saw all your comments and I decided to make this video, so I've left my pages blank, or you know, I wrote and doodled and I've left them uncoloured so that I can show you and colour them in with you guys. So let's do that. First things first is to open up the watercolours. As I said, I've got the large set of Winsor & Newton. I've also got a piece of kitchen towel in case I don't want to mop something up, and I'll be using the Pentel Aqua brush. You just put water, if you don't know that, you just put water into the like the handle tube, I don't know, canister, and you just gently squeeze to release the water from the nib. So I wiped away a section of paint from my palette because I want to make a new colour, and I'm just mixing up a flesh tone. And to mix up a flesh tone you need yellow, red and white, and you just play with the quantities of each until you get the colour how you want it. You can have it sort of, if you want it pinker then add more red, if you want it yellower then add more yellow. So I'm just sort of practicing. Now it ended up being a little darker than I initially wanted. So what I did there is I put a little bit of paint on and then just spread it out with my finger because I didn't want to add any more paint to it. So then I wanted to take some of the paint away, but I stupidly had some remnants of some watercolour paint on my tissue, so I ended up adding extra yellow ochre to the face around my eye there. So I'm just trying to kind of repair what I did, which didn't actually go very well. So this is really a tutorial on what not to do, as well as kind of what what to do, but you know, just my journal, just playing. So I always add pink cheeks to everything I do. I love pink cheeks, so just adding a dab of red paint and then just using my finger just to kind of spread it out a bit and tone the colour down. And then with the leftover red on my brush, I'm just kind of filling in the hearts. So this is supposed to be a picture of me. Obviously I've got my hair up in the ponytail there on the right side, and my friend's baby. I went to hers today and had lots of playtime and cuddles with my BFF's baby, and just sort of documenting that really. So that's what the picture is. Just using a nice bright orange for my hair. This is a sort of like a cartoon or a caricature of myself, and I always do bright orange hair for me on my portraits. Just that's how I see myself and how I kind of represent myself. Well, I went for Costa coffee because I got the bus into town, so have a little doodle of a coffee cup, and I've also got a bus there. I'm not being like, these are just kind of doodles, they don't have to be accurate, so I'm just kind of filling the bus all in blue. It's just to document your day. It doesn't have to be accurate and true to life or anything like that. I mean, seriously, I don't look like that picture of me. But it's kind of how I see the you know, the kind of like the caricature version of myself. And I just kind of, you can, with watercolour, you can add more colours, and just bear in mind that it does reactivate the colour that you've already got. So I'm just adding another colour into my hair just to kind of give it a bit of a dimension, and then blotting up some of the excess that I, you know, don't really want on there. And I'm also just doing a bit of a green wash on my pages because I wanted to show you that you can, you know, do a large area which is quite wet and washy on your page, and you know, you could do that fine, there's no problem, don't be scared, just practice and you will be able to do it absolutely fine. So that's what I'm just doing with the green, just showing you that you can wash all over your page with some colour. So next up, I'm just using my black pen to re-go over the eyes because they lost some of the vibrancy when I painted over them. And I always use a white Posca paint pen just to do like the catch lights in the eyes. I am terrible for not letting things dry, so my black wasn't dried properly, so I'll go and sort that out later. I'm using the larger Posca paint pen. I'm just adding some white to my face because I wanted to tone down some of the yellow that I accidentally smudged on my face. And also the skin tone was a bit dark, so I just put a load of the I started by putting some of the Posca paint pen directly onto my face. Wasn't working how I wanted to. I think the page was still wet, so I just put some on the back of my hand and I'm using my brush just to go over the rest of the painting. The Posca paint pens are basically like poster paint, so they reactivate with water, so you can kind of, you know, mix them with your watercolour no problem. And so I'm just going back in with my Posca paint pen now to do the whites in the eyes, and that, my friends, is my completed page. So I really hope that's helped and answered the comments and questions that you left for me. Please feel free to ask if you've got any other questions or anything like that, or intrigued. As I say, so I've got some of mine. As I say, I've been using watercolours for a long time, long time, and I do have an art education background and stuff, so I'm very happy to impart knowledge and experience where I can. I'm not an art teacher or an art expert or anything, but I'm very happy to share my knowledge and impart anything that I can at any time. So if you've got any questions or anything, then let me know. The other thing I wanted to just mention, which I didn't previously, is pens. If you're using watercolour, make sure you use a waterproof pen or a pen that dries permanent. Once you've done it, make sure it dries permanently, and then you'll be good to go. You don't want to use a pen that's going to be reactivating with the water. Or you do your watercolour, you pencil first, then do your watercolour, and then go do the outline in the pen once the watercolour's dry. So just bear that in mind. But anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again soon, no doubt. And if you've got any questions or comments or anything about either my Fauxbonichi journey or the watercolour stuff in general, then just leave them below. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.